What does the word bust actually mean? In terms of fantasy baseball, it doesn't necessarily mean a player is going to have an awful season. Maybe it just means he's a little too expensive at his current ADP. Hey, what's going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back to another episode here of the Fantasy Headliners. I'm Kyle Richardson. Thanks for joining me to talk about fantasy baseball ADP busts, and I am emphasizing that ADP mention there because these three guys, I don't necessarily think they're going to have awful seasons. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't draft them. I'm not telling you to stay away from them. I'm telling you to stay away from them at their current ADP. And I've got some reasons why, and we're going to jump into that here in just a second. But before we do, if this is your first video here for the Fantasy Headliners, we would appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and become part of one of the largest fantasy sports YouTube communities here. Over 29,000 strong at this point. Become a part of Headliner Nation today. And if you're a new member of Headliner Nation, let us know in the comments below so we can welcome you. Also, we're one of the most interactive channels here on YouTube. So leave a comment below. Let us know. What are your thoughts? Do you have any questions about this? Do you have questions for other players or need some advice? Let us know. We will get back to you. And then also make sure you hit the like button on this video if you like the information that we gave to you. Now let's get into this a little bit more and talk about these players that we have listed here, and you can see them off to my left-hand side. You're right. If you look at those names there, maybe a couple of them surprise you, and let's talk a little bit more about them, and let's jump into Walker Buehler first. Now, Walker Buehler currently has an ADP of 40.7, which is making him the 14th starting pitcher off the board. And with all three of these players, one thing they have in common is some splits in their statistics that make me question whether or not they're going to be as good as they're being drafted this season. One thing that I do look at a lot when it comes to pitchers or hitters, players in particular, are splits. So for their splits, it could be different things. It could be first half, it could be second half, it could be home or away, it could be a whole lot of different things. So with that being said, Walker Buehler splits that I'm paying attention to are home versus away. He was tremendous at home last season, 100%. He only gave up, he had a 1.93 ERA in 13 games last season at home, 74 innings pitched, 46 hits, only gave up 16 earned runs and struck out 84 players. He had a whip of .830 last season at home. So great at home, fabulous at home. You could rely on this guy at home. Now, he wasn't bad on the road, but if he comes a little bit closer to what he did on the road than what he did at home, he's not going to be the 14th best starting pitcher in all of baseball this season. On the road last season, a 3.45 ERA in 11 games, only 62 2/3 innings, but he gave up 49 hits. So he gave up more hits and less innings on the road. He also gave up more runs and less innings on the road, giving up 24 earned runs on the road. He did have a 1.17 ERA, and that strikeout per nine dipped a little bit under 10 to 9.6. So what are we going to get from him? Are we going to get a pitcher that is more like what he was on the road or more like what he was at home? Now, keep in mind, he does have to go on the road and face the Rockies. He could have at least a couple of starts out in Colorado this season, and that's not an easy place to pitch, and that is not an easy lineup to play against. The Padres are also greatly improved. Their lineup is much better than what it was last year, so if you look at that lineup, that could end up being a team that causes some troubles here and there. And then another one to take a look at is their interleague schedule. For their interleague schedule, they have the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Rays, all three of them potentially on the road. So these are games that Walker Buehler may have to start against pretty potent lineup. Don't love the Rays lineup as much, but it could end up having some decent value this season. So you got to pay attention to that. But the Red Sox and the Yankees, 100%, if he's got to face them, those are tough lineups to have to face on the road. So pay attention to him. The number 2 name on this list, Ozzie Albies, and don't get me wrong, I love Ozzie Albies in terms of dynasty, but in redraft, it is ADP of 56.3, being the 5th second baseman overall. I'm not feeling that this year. And the biggest reason why, and you've probably heard it more than enough, is his first and second half splits. He was a completely different player in the first half than he was in the second half. So are those second half struggles real? Is that more of the player that we're going to see? Or are we going to see more of the player in the first half? we just want to keep that in mind. In the first half this past season, in 405 at bats, he hit 281 with 20 home runs and 55 RBIs. He got off to an excellent start. So anybody that grabbed him off waivers, maybe if you played in a deeper league and you already owned him after the draft, he offered tremendous help in the first half. But for as much help as he gave you in the second half, he hurt you in the as much help as he gave you in the first half, he hurt you in the second half. He only hit 226 in the second half with 4 home runs and 17 RBIs. So in 252 plate appearances in the second half, he also struck out 45 times compared to 71 times and almost double the at-bats in the first half. So Ozzie Albies, again, a guy that I like. I'm just not taking him as the 5th overall second baseman this season, and I'm not taking him at that 56.3 ADP right now either. He'd have to slip a little bit more for me to be able to spend that kind of moolah on him, and I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to do that at that price point. And finally, the last name on this list, Tommy Pham from the Tampa Bay Rays. What are you buying Tommy Pham as? Are you buying him as the player that he was in St. Louis, or are you buying him as the player that he was in Tampa Bay? Because if you're buying him for what he was at Tampa Bay, I apologize, but you're not going to get that. So Tommy Pham, currently an ADP of 68. He's a 20th overall outfielder being taken. So really being viewed as an outfielder 2 type player right now. And I can't do that. He did have an excellent part of the season, so 174 at bats while he was in Tampa Bay, 39 games, but he hit 343, and even more impressive than that, 7 doubles, 6 triples, 7 home runs, 22 RBIs. So he was on fire while he was in Tampa Bay. But he's not that player. That's not who Tommy Pham is. I mean, his breakout season in St. Louis in 2017, he hit 306, 23 home runs, and 73 RBIs. Total for last season, a 275 batting average, 21 home runs, 63 RBIs. So the type of pace that he was on in Tampa Bay, it's not going to happen. He's not that kind of a player. I mean, in the 2 years prior to that, in 2015, only 5 home runs. In 2016, only 9 home runs as more of a part-time player. You know, in 2017, when he became more of a full-time player in 128 games, yes, that did pick up, and he did play much better. But that's only one season. We really only have one full season where he has provided numbers that would make us think that he's a guy that we can put in our lineup every single day. I mean, even before the trade last year, 248, 14 home runs, 11 doubles, no triples. So, I mean, he wasn't bad. I mean, he wasn't awful. You know, you want to see a better batting average there. But in terms of RBIs and home runs, I mean, he's not a guy that we're probably going to own very much. So right now, his ADP is just, it's too far out of control for me. There's no way that I can spend that type of collateral on him. I'm just not going to do it. There are players after him that offer, in my mind, better value. So if you're thinking of taking Tommy Pham where he is right now, let's just talk about some guys that are going to come after him. So he's going at he's going at outfielder 20 right now. Marcell Ozuna is going right after him. Mitch Haniger, Nicholas Castellanos, Justin Upton, Yasiel Puig, David Dahl, Joey Gallo, if you play in a league that doesn't take into consideration strikeouts or average, he is there. AJ Pollock, a guy that I've talked about that could offer some sneaky value. Will Myers. I mean, there's just a bunch of guys that come after him that you can wait on, that you can take, or even take ahead of them. If Marcell Ozuna and Tommy Pham are right there next to each other, we have a 70.2 and a 70.4 ADP. Ozuna, okay, so Ozuna actually, he slipped a little bit since I wrote this note down. So he's at 70 now and not 68. Still at 20 though. So Marcell Ozuna going right after him. I'll take Marcell Ozuna every single day of the week. Not near, and again, Marcell Ozuna really only has one good season as well, but he plays in a much better lineup. He's going to have Paul Goldschmidt around him. I mean, he's going to have a lot better opportunities than what Tommy Pham will. So those are just 3 of my players that I'm looking at as potential busts this season. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Again, leave us a comment, subscribe to the channel, like the video, all of that good stuff. We appreciate you tuning in and watching this fantasy baseball episode of the Fantasy Headliners. We will talk to you soon, and we will catch you in the next video. Thank you.